This is the game over hypercar. The Red Bull RB17 comes directly from the mind of Adrian Newey, the most successful F1 designer there's ever been, and it's been developed and honed by probably the sharpest F1 operation that the world has ever seen. Forget the Ferrari F80, McLaren W1, even the Aston Martin Valkyrie. This car exists in a whole different universe. Red Bull claim that it will lap on lap record pace of an F1 car, an actual F1 car. It's completely nuts. Today, we're going to take a catch up on where the development program is, and I am finally going to get to drive this car, the RB17, and I predict confidently that I am going to crash, probably several times.
So annoying. But I will get it together, so stick around and you'll find out just where my best lap would have put me on the grid at last year's British Grand Prix. Not bad. That's really cool. Just to recap before we dive in, the RB17 has a 4.5 litre V10 engine from Cosworth that revs to 15,000 RPM and produces 1,000 horsepower. There's a total output of 1,200 horsepower thanks to an E-motor between the engine and 6-speed sequential box. It features carbon brakes and weighs under 900 kilos and produces up to 1,700 kilos of downforce. Today, I'll be let loose at the Silverstone GP circuit, one of the most challenging and rewarding tracks imaginable in a high downforce, high horsepower car. And while our first taste of the RB17 is on the simulator, this is no normal computer game. This sim with wraparound display, single-seater cockpit and a dynamic hydraulically powered motion platform is built from the ground up by Red Bull and is extremely closely related to the F1 unit. It is highly accurate right down to the bespoke Michelin tyres, which we'll get back to in a moment. As of now, all of the RB17's dynamic development has been done right here. Okay, so we're in this really strange environment. Got a helmet on, strapped in, got a Formula 1 style steering wheel ahead of me, and about to experience at least a digital simulation of what this car's like. My fears are that I might be sick and that I might just crash every other corner, or even worse, just be so slow that I don't even get close to crashing. I'm not sure which is more embarrassing, but let's see how this goes. Okay, it's powering up, which is weird in itself, sort of buzzing and vibrating beneath me.
It's good to go when you are.
What a strange feeling. The noise is very high pitched, like an old screamer of an engine in my ear. There's a lot of movement in the platform. You can feel the texture of the curbs and the surface. It's a strange feeling. I can feel myself lifting the nose up because my movements aren't smooth enough, so I need to work on that. The temptation is to overslow the car, but it has so much grip and traction that Silverstone is like a different track, because it's coming at you so much quicker. At first, the platform movement feels a little alien and strange, but actually that fades incredibly quickly and you never really think about it again. Of course, there's no sustained G-loading, but the platform's movements and the action unfolding match perfectly, and my fears of feeling sick never materialise. As for the car, it is outrageous. Just recently, the Aston Martin Valkyrie set a new road car lap record at Silverstone GP with a 156.42. My first laps in the RB17, on slicks of course, are hovering in the mid to low 130s. At the 2024 British GP, the fastest race lap was set by Carlos Sainz and was a 128.293. Of course, I'm not exactly Carlos Sainz. Oh, I hit the sausage curb. Oh, that's bad times. As you can probably tell, I'm not a seasoned sim driver, nor am I used to travelling quite this fast around Silverstone. However, eventually I do get a clean lap. To be honest, the cornering speeds and braking distances are completely beyond any reference I might have. The RB17's responsiveness, stability and traction are alien. Unbelievable, in fact. The blown diffuser gives so much low-speed grip, and despite braking so late it seems like certain virtual death is inevitable, I barely even trigger the ABS. I manage a lap time of just over 1 minute 32 seconds, and the car is capable of so much more. And we haven't even bolted on the Michelin Confidential tyres and lowered the car 10mm for the ultimate experience.
I've just stepped out of the sim run, the first one. We started off with no motion, but very quickly went up to the actual, the hydraulic rams, giving me the effect of the car. Initially, it felt like there was quite a lot of dive and roll, etc. But as soon as if you go slow, you feel a bit weird and slightly sick. But as soon as you start just driving the way you imagine or like to imagine you could drive, it feels more natural. The car is outrageous. This was normal tyres and not in the lowest track setting, so it can go another 10mm, and then you can have the Michelin Confidentials, which I'll try later. It's truly mind scrambling. Like the high speed grip, I think because I've watched F1 and I'm like, yeah, cops is like a lift, and like you sort of, I get that, although I'd never drive that fast in real life. But the low speed, how late you can brake and how quickly you can release and get on the power, the traction is ridiculous. I spun a couple of times, but mostly because I was like, it turned in so quick, I'd hit a sausage curb or I'd unsettle the platform, if you like. But it is unlike anything I've ever driven. If it's like that in real life, which they tell me it will be, it's outrageous. And it's so far beyond like a Valkyrie or something that it's not even worth having the conversation. It's a different world. So, Dom, you can give me a couple of highlights. My lap time was?
Best lap time, that one was a 32.8.
So 132.8. We think the lap record is like a 124 in an F1 car, something like that, yeah. Silverstone GP. So I've only done, how many laps did I do? 8? 12?
Yeah, 12 laps. Around
12 laps, probably half of them I spun. So yeah, it's just nuts. 4.4G braking. What's my biggest lateral G?
3.7 lateral.
3.7 lateral. So I'm taking baby steps in the car, standard spec they call it. I think we're going to have a little bit of a look through the data. I'm going to recalibrate my brain completely, and then maybe we'll try it in ultimate spec. And yeah, who knows? Lap record, here we come.
So there's much more to come, but I need a little moment to let my brain form the necessary new pathways to go even faster. We're catching up with Rob Gray, Technical Director of Red Bull Advanced Technologies and Project Lead on the RB17. Rob started on this site when it was still Jaguar F1 and worked his way up to Chief Designer of Red Bull's Formula One cars until switching over to RBAT 4 years ago.
Tell us about where the project is, what's changed maybe physically on the car, and then we can go into the drivetrain, powertrain.
Sure, so this was, obviously we released this to the public in Goodwood last year, so Goodwood 24. But it was actually finished probably 6 months before that. So it really, and as in the model was finished, and so the design was signed off another 3 or 4 months prior to that. So it is quite an old snapshot in time. At the same time, I think it still looks all right. But yeah, so we've moved on. With Adrian left us at the end of February, and our big target was to sign off on all the aerodynamic surfaces before he left the building. We still hear from him, but he's not involved on a day-to-day basis. And so we've very much done that. And really, it's just adding a lot of detail to this. So, if you look at this closely, it hasn't got all of the shut lines. It hasn't got much detail in the wings. It hasn't got many inlets and exits for cooling. And so it's really adding all of that detail into the car and really making it real. And so, yeah, we've achieved that target of signing off the aero by the time Adrian finished.
Okay, so customer cars will arrive next year?
Yep, so aiming for the first delivery towards the end of 2026.
Okay, end of 2026. So let's talk about the engine. It's a 4.5 litre V10.
Yep.
You guys heavily involved in speccing it out. I don't know if you did any design here or whether it went straight to Cosworth.
No, we did what I call the very early concept designs, but that's kind of really just almost sort of cartoon schemes where we're moving things around and trying to decide how many cylinders and that kind of fundamental thing, but then Cosworth got very involved and have taken that forward. And Cosworth have now run the first engine on the dyno, so that was a great milestone to hit probably a month or two ago, and then development continues. But then also on the powertrain, obviously we've got the electric motor, and so that's been running on the dyno of the supplier there, and that's now seen full torque, which is significant for the motor because it's full current, and it's running at about, I think getting up to about 2/3 of its maximum speed. And then the battery's also been running on a rig at the battery manufacturer, and that's looking good, rejecting a bit less heat than we were expecting, which is great because that just buys us headroom. So the powertrain's getting there, and then obviously that then goes to the road through the gearbox. And
let's actually move here, I think, because obviously this is a model, but we've got some stuff here, and you were explaining a bit about how this is related, but also different to the RB16.
Sure. So so this is the RB16 gearbox, and then this is again, it's a snapshot in time of the RB17 gearbox. And it's, the fundamental layout is very similar. You can see here that the RB17 has the e-motor drivetrain, so the motor connects into there and drives into the system there. But fundamentally, the layout is very similar. There's a difference in that I think the 16 had 7 speeds, this is 6 speeds, because we've got a much torquier engine, so we don't need that 7th speed. And all those kind of decisions, so obviously you've been in the sim, but all of those decisions, the sim is what we use to make those decisions. And so 6-speed versus 7-speed, we run the two models in the sim, see what gives us the faster lap time, and then that's how we then decide that we're going 6-speed. So it's quite a good decision-making tool for engineers.
In other race cars I've driven that have either been roadified, I know this isn't going to be a road car, but I've heard lots of things about these gearboxes and how clever they are and how light they are. But the reality is often they feel a bit slower than, say, a twin clutch box, and they actually can interrupt, even in the Valkyrie, which you probably can't comment on, but you guys were involved in. So where are we with shift time? What would we expect to feel in the car?
We're aiming for around the 50 millisecond mark, which I think you'll find feels very fast compared to other cars.
And you've got torque fill as well from the electric motor.
Torque fill from the electric motor, which will stop the dog shunt, which is something we identified as being something that drivers really don't like to feel.
For owners, what's it going to be like with an RB17? You get it, you take it to a track day. What's the maintenance on this incredible V10 engine? Where are we at with that stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, we're aiming for it to be really easy to live with, and it's been a driving thing throughout the project, really. I mean, you've got conflicting requirements in some ways. On the one hand, we're saying we want it to be the fastest thing out there, but on the other hand, we want it to be super durable, we want it to be easy to live with, we don't want to have a massive team of mechanics to run it, and we don't want to be servicing it every 5 minutes. So our kind of aim is, it depends on how you use the car. So if you get in and do Max Verstappen qualifying laps every day of the week, then obviously the servicing is going to be higher than if you're a sort of more normal level of driver who uses it but doesn't absolutely thrash it to within an inch of its life. So in the Max Verstappen case, we're aiming for it to really last, getting on for about 10,000 kilometres between major rebuilds.
Wow.
Which is where we said if we were designing it for Le Mans, that's what we want to do for a Le Mans car. Whereas if you're using it in a slightly reduced duty cycle, so slightly more what we think most owners will do, then that more than doubles. And our aim is not to have any massively expensive operations during that time.
Okay. We've heard some of the numbers at the initial launch. Have they all stayed effectively the same, where the car is with its aero performance, lap times, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, so aero performance is very much limited by tyres. So we have the active aero system on the car, so we've got an active front wing, active rear wing, and active diffuser. And really the purpose of those is to be able to turn down or level off the aero, so the aero stops increasing with the speed, so that the tyres don't get overloaded. So yeah, aero is exactly where we've always said we wanted it to be.
Rob says engine performance is on target too, and the weight will come in under 900 kilos. The first prototype will be ready to start testing in autumn 2025, but while it's still coming together, here's a look at some proper physical parts.
Some of the bigger bits we're not able to see today. So for example, the chassis is in manufacture, but that's at a stage where we can't really be interrupting it.
And where's that being made?
That's being made here on site.
Oh, it is. So this is obviously Cosworth engine.
Cosworth engine.
Gearbox, correct?
So the gearbox is a bit of a mixture. It's pretty much the same as we do on the F1 car, in that X-Track are very involved with the internals of the gearbox, and they make the gears for us. But then the overall layout of the actual whole gearbox itself, that's ours. We're making the casings ourselves. and then putting it all together ourselves. So
Okay, it's a true Red Bull. It's a true Red Bull car, isn't it?
It was really important for us that we always talk about the Red Bull DNA,
Yeah.
and we really want the core of the car to be Red Bull,
Okay.
and that means we need to be making some big chunks of it ourselves.
Okay, let's talk about these first.
Yep,
So these are titanium, I guess.
titanium, yeah, titanium wishbone.
Titanium wishbones.
Machined,
And can you
machined from one big lump.
Okay, and can you tell me, unbelievably light, obviously extremely durable, and these will have a carbon sleeve on when they go on the car. Tell me about the suspension system. You've said it's an active system. Is it push rod, pull rod? There's a lot of chat in F1 about what's the best system. So just run through that for us.
It's push rod, which is kind of different to where we've gone with the F1 car, but I think the push rod, pull rod question in F1 is very much driven by the aerodynamics and the regulations around it at the time. So it's sort of, I wouldn't draw any big conclusions from whether it's push or pull on this car. And it's an active system, allows us to control ride height, so that's really for aero platform control, because you want with all the underbody aerodynamics, you want the car to be kept at the right height off the ground. And so the active suspension allows to do that and allows us to correct for the squash of the tyres. Can you imagine the aero squashing the tyres into the floor? And so actually, slightly counterintuitively, you're almost lifting the car to correct for that rather than lowering it down. So that's the active sort of ride height control. And then we also run active roll control. So via the roll bars, which allows us to eliminate the roll.
So you've got traditional roll bars, and then what, they have hydraulic system?
Hydraulic actuators on it's almost like a hydraulic actuator on the drop link to the roll bar.
Okay. And what about, I guess you're maybe not at this stage yet, but if the car is completely flat, I mean, we've almost seen this in F1. They've struggled with cars that are completely flat in terms of feedback, and they're obviously operating at a high level, so you're going to have to dial a bit of that in.
We will. And that's one of the things we're doing in the sim really is playing with those kind of parameters to see how you get to a point that's the most driver friendly. And I think it'll also be adjustable for the driver. So they can play and tweak. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that the driver will be able to tweak the roll control. Okay,
fine. What else do we have here then?
And so just got some front track rods, so connecting the wheels from the steering perspective. An upright, which had its axle assembled. That was actually machined here on site in the F1 machine shop.
Gorgeous.
The axles are made by a company in Austria, another of our partners.
Wow.
And everything sort of, it's all very F1-esque. It's sort of.
It really is, and this is a crash structure.
That's a crash structure. That's a rear impact structure. We've done the first of the crash test. That's actually passed the crash test, so that's just a spare that we had.
And how would you, let's sum up a little bit, how would you characterise working on this? Suddenly no regulations, no safety regs, which maybe we could talk about, but from an engineering point of view, it must be unbelievable just to get involved with this and lead the development of something that is effectively unprecedented.
Yeah, I mean, that side of it's amazing, and it's really interesting not having the constraints of the regulations. It brings its own challenges, because you have to know when to say stop and when to actually transition from the kind of research phase of designing the car to actually getting on and building the car. And so there's that challenge as well. We have other constraints. We do have a budget that we have to work within. It's not.
But there's no one on the FIA coming around to tell you what you can
No one on the FIA telling us what we're allowed to do.
It's just the accountants telling you.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, fantastic to get an insight into the car. Obviously, we're experiencing it in a virtual world, but it's really coming together. And I think, for me, just to come here, see this campus, see the amount of expertise, it makes you realise that this is like NASA for hypercars, if you like. They're pushing boundaries that we haven't even thought about. So hopefully they'll need an everyman in the development driver team. And I'm volunteering myself right now, Rob. So I'll give you my CV later.
Thank you very much.
So now it's time. The RB17 has been uprated from standard T1 spec to the full TX mode, which means the Michelin Confidential tyres have been uploaded and the RB17 is now in its ultimate aero configuration, riding 10mm lower. This won't be the work of a moment in the real world, as you'll have to pre-arrange Michelin to be on hand. They won't let Confidential tyres out of their sight and will take them away after your track session. Plus, the suspension requires manual adjustment rather than push-button operation. However, the results should be startling.
Okay, so I'm about to do my stint in the car in its maximum performance mode. So that means Michelin Confidential tyres,
10 mil lower ride height, so the question is, can I feel this difference? And is my brain capable to extract more performance from what already feels like an absurdly, almost impossibly fast car? Okay, let's see. Wow, it turns even more, way more grip. The most amazing thing is just how late you can brake. It's completely bizarre, and no matter what speed you carry into the slow corners, there seems to be more grip than you can believe. So this has got a blown diffuser, this car. So they say it has more low speed grip than a Formula One car would have. So that's part of this drive to make it more accessible to normal people. Just more positivity in this mode. It's hard to talk and keep up with what's going on, but the level of grip is huge. Mess that up. The problem is the track comes so fast at you that you just can't calibrate, and if you miss a turning point, you're going so quick. I just cannot believe how quickly you can get into these slow corners. Okay, I think I've immediately gone quicker. Oh my God, this thing is unbelievable. Traction like you just cannot believe. Just stuck through the corners. It turned Silverstone Grand Prix track into basically a go-kart track. It's outrageous. And I think a tribute to how good the sim is, apart from the fact I haven't vommed everywhere, is that I can go quicker immediately. I can feel that it's got more grip and attack more. I'm still miles off what it could do. My God, doing this in real life is outrageous. I cannot believe it's possible. It's so fast.
The RB17, which already seems to have superpowers, is transformed. Grip, traction, braking and stability are at a scale that's difficult to comprehend. And my lap time falls by around 6 seconds. Forget F1 race pace, this is low fuel Q3 qualifying pace.
So your best lap time was a 1:26.2. That would have put you 5th on the grid for the F1 race last year.
The learning curve on this is essentially vertical. So if you want to go quicker, you need an F1 style data debrief. A, I didn't puke up. B, I wasn't horrendously bad. So let's talk a little bit about lap time and some of the numbers that this car is generating already.
Yeah, so on the T1 car, which is the base car that you've drove at first, you did a 1:32.2.
Okay.
Which is not far off our best that we've seen, but you know,
yeah, probably 2 or 3 seconds, sadly, maybe more.
And then with the highest performance car, so the confidential tyres and everything, you did a 1:26.2.
Okay, so 6 seconds. And as I said in the sim, I think it's a testament to, I was like, how am I going to feel this extra grip? But it was just immediately the car switched on, there's more positivity. Already, my mind was sort of blown, but then you get in and you're like, okay, yeah, this is now the new benchmark, your brain moves quickly. So 126, so let's talk peak speeds and peak G and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I mean the peak speeds are fairly similar because it's end of the hangar straight, you're reaching to the top end of the car there, but your peak G, I mean you're increasing by half a G between the two cars, so from 3.9 to 4.5 in lateral and more than 5G in deceleration.
So 4.5 cornering G and 5G braking, over 5G of braking. obviously the sim's fascinating because it gives you the behaviour of the car and it gives you some movement, but it doesn't sustain the G. Obviously it can't do that. So I think that's going to be the real challenge I can't imagine that owners will be able to do more than, we've been talking about how long the tyres last, half a day, etc. if you're on a decent pace. And I'm like, I just can't see how anyone's going to do more than half a day. Okay, so let's say this was the real world and I'd just done half a day at Silverstone and we're on our break, and in between me collapsing and all the other things, where would you tell me to go quicker? Where could I find time?
Yeah, so I mean, when we were looking at the traces, especially your braking traces, you were hitting the brake quite hard, but then you were staying quite hard on the brake, so you weren't trailing into the corner as much as you could. And yeah, I would say even though you were hitting the pedal really, really hard, we weren't actually entering ABS in the highest performance car, so you had even more deceleration.
Oh really? I never got to it?
You were only on the inside wheel, so you had more to go in terms of deceleration.
That's nuts. I think for me the biggest, I mean, it's completely different level in every way, but the way the low speed is brought up as well, it almost feels like a bigger step between the low speed grip than the high. It's weird. It's got so much, and you have to tell yourself, come off the brake, because you turn in and you want to carry on braking. You're like, oh, I don't need to, there's more. And it's great that you can get the feeling, if you overslow the car, you immediately sense it. So I don't know if I was skeptical, I was just worried that my old school senses from just driving normal cars wouldn't translate to the sim, but it sort of did. So yeah, 126 around Silverstone, that's probably about, I don't know, a minute faster than I've ever gone around there in the real world. So I'll take that. I'd love to come back. It's addictive. You just don't want to stop once you get going.
It's good fun.
But yeah, truly mind blowing. And this is going to be invaluable to owners because, like I say, you couldn't fathom that you could go quicker once you've hit your own limit effectively. And this is going to be the key in people trying to unlock that performance. So yeah, really cool, really cool. And if you spend £5 million plus, I guess you'd expect some of this. So thank you very much.
No worries.
Good to see where I'm slow. So I look and feel pretty dishevelled after a day in the company of the RB17, albeit mostly in the virtual world. If it wasn't for the fact that we'd chatted to Rob and seen some of the components, I wouldn't believe this was real. I'm staggered at how fast you can drive it. I'm amazed that Red Bull are going to build this car and allow it out into the general public. They're going to have to do a lot of driver training. It's going to take a long time for owners, I imagine, to even scratch the surface. In a couple of sessions in maximum mode, I think my best lap was good enough for 5th on the grid of the British GP last year, and that isn't even close, so to what it can actually do. So I almost don't know what to say. Whatever benchmark you have in your head, unless Max, you are watching right now, it's irrelevant. This thing is going to change the game completely. Whether you think it's a good thing or not, it's mind-blowing, like full on. The RB17 is like nothing we've ever seen before, and I'm struggling to think if we'll ever see anything like it again.